Welcome back, Squatchers, to the wrapping up of the season of encounters, the very first season of encounters, anyhow. That's right, we're going on out to New Jersey, Sussex County to be exact. More Bigfoot reports come from Sussex County than anywhere else. We're going to kick it off with the first of the Fox Bigfoot adventures and the end tonight with the Bigfoot Campfire Story. And we got some news of the week and a Quasi rewind all in the mixed for you. Welcome, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. I am indeed your host of this mess, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, proprietor of truth. I care not that you drink from the pool of knowledge. That's your choice to drink or not. I really can't help you there. I've been having a rough week with some of the people that are out there in the Bigfoot world just supporting hoaxers and hoax supporters and just trying, why can't you just let bygones be bygones? Well, that's because bygones be letting be bygones isn't, when people are getting hurt and the truth isn't being told, that's not the same. That's being complacent in fuckery, and I'm just not on board for that. So, hey, look at that. We're already a minute into the show, and I've already dropped the F-bomb. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. That's right. The half heathen in me wants to scalp all you white bastards, and the other half of me says, you're not so bad. Let's get it started tonight with, I've got a very short cast of news, what's at least masquerading as news this week. Most of them from Dean, our Quasi theory man. He likes to post the news up in the lounge every day. Living fossils of Earth's oldest life forms have been found in Tasmania. Well, imagine that. Known life was relatively simple microbial mats that grew in wavy layers, leaving thin pancakes of excreted minerals stacked between them. Dromelites, microbial colonies are known, first appeared on the planet at least 3.5 billion years ago. That's with a B, people. Anybody that thinks the Earth's 6,000 years old is flat and is covered by a dome of unknown what floating around the universe on the back of a turtle being held up by 4 elephant trunks, I got news for you. Anyhow, they're all over the fossil record, but today they live mostly except for a few shallow, extra salty marine spots like the Hamelin Pool in Shark Bay, Western Australia. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Why do I bring this up? Well, because it's important to remember that you too, if not more, we all come from things like this. The DNA had a long time to get where it's going, and we had a long talk about Bigfoot in a couple of the groups, and I brought up Paranthropus to somebody, and they thought, well, gee, it just looks too ape-like. Of course, the very few actual fossil records we have for Paranthropus don't include a portrait, so we really don't know what they look like, but my comment to them was, yeah, now imagine what 300,000 years of evolution would do to how they look. And speaking of human evolution, time. Ding, ding, ding. Human evolution was uneven and punctuated. Imagine that. A new study suggests that Neanderthals survived at least 3,000 years longer in Spain than we actually thought. Neanderthals survived 3,000 longer years than we thought. Now, not a full thought of when they exactly died out. And I love how everybody comes up with new ideas. But anyhow, the author of the study, an international team of Portuguese, Spanish, and German, Australian, and Italian research institutes, boy, is that a mouthful, say their findings suggest that the process of modern human populations absorbing Neanderthal populations through interbreeding was not a regular of advance, but a stop and go, punctuated geographically uneven history. Well, of course it would. The Homo sapiens took the world like a virus. We are basically a disease. Technology from the middle Paleolithic in Europe is exclusively associated with the Neanderthals. Excavation sites, they found Neanderthal artifacts dated to thousands of years later than anyone in Western Europe, even the adjacent regions of northern Spain and southern France. The last sites are all significantly older. Dun, dun, How much Neanderthal do you have in you? I don't know. I don't think I have any in me, but some people have like up to 2 or 3% of Neanderthal in them. They came, they went, they bought the t-shirt. 1,000-year-old rock art includes the world's oldest images of dogs. That's right. And I thought this was really, really cool. I am a rock art kind of guy. Like, I want to go create rock art. Like, I want to go out to the Sierras with a chisel and a hammer, maybe even my Bob Ross paint set, and, you know, find some overhanging rocks and go in there and paint going to be there in 1,000 years. Do you think that's possible? I mean, can we do that? Because, you know, 1,000 years from now, we need to kind of leave our marks in caves and crap like this, because we're probably not going to be around anymore. We're going to blow each other up into smithereens or something crazy. Anyhow, the dogs are often shown helping humans hunt lions, ibexes, and gazelles. Yeah, that's not a LBGT community, people. Horses and other prey. Some dogs in the hunting packs are on leashes tethered to the waists of hunters, whose hands are then free to shoot arrows. The researchers speculated that these leashed dogs might represent young dogs in training, older ones at risk of injury, or valuable scent dogs. It's kind of cool. We don't really know exactly when the dog was domesticated, but we do know that it certainly was, and it was definitely used to help hunt. But the rock paintings are just so cool. Across the world, they tell the story of what came and went. And what's the rock going to tell about us? We dug lithium out of it. The news for the night. Bigfoot debate. Is it spirit or science? That's right, by Jim Drake. An interesting question. If you had hair samples from a Bigfoot creature in your possession, would you send it to a laboratory, a laboratory for DNA analysis, or would you return those hairs back to its rightful owner? Say what? Last Friday night, the Discovery Center hosted a lecture by Mel Scahan, who called Sasquatch and Spirituality. He's a forester in the Yakima Nation and said he's worked outdoors for the last 20 years. He's known to the go-to guy when you need to report a Bigfoot sighting in the Yakima Reservation. He says that approximately 860 sightings have taken place. And during his job as forestry, a job that takes him deep into the wilderness of the Mount Adams areas, he himself once sighted the creature. These are the kind of articles that I really dig about, because I don't know who this guy is. Like, I literally have never heard of this guy before. And it has a lot to do with, the fact that too much of the crappery is at the forefront of Bigfooting these days. And I really, really wish that we'd knock some of these heroes right out of their chairs and get back to the subject of actually finding the thing, about putting up fake pictures of them. Anyhow, sorry, I'm in a weird place right now. Let's get to a better place. I've got some excellent, fantastic news for all of you fans out there for Bigfoot Campfire Stories. YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, has finally made the ability to go live on your mobile device a reality. So coming in season 6 of the Squatchers Lounge podcast, we will be releasing live Bigfoot Campfire Stories with the old Reverend himself from around the live fire in Bigfoot territory in the El Dorado National Forest. Yay! No, absolutely cool. I've got to get a couple of devices for my phone, and the nice thing about it is I figured out how to actually take this microphone with me into the woods and be able to record and go with these things live. So I'm going to be doing some live reporting. There's going to be some live investigations, hopefully, that'll be able to go on there as well. At least updates from live investigations from the field. I don't know exactly where all of the coverage is up there, but I do know that our main camp has 3G coverage on the phone. So we should be able to go live with 3G, and that'll be absolutely fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the live Bigfoot Campfire Stories. It's something I've always wanted to do, but haven't had the ability to do it. Yeah, you can go live on Facebook. The old Reverend here will never give Facebook one of his videos for free. Not happening. Facebook doesn't deserve it. All they want to do is make money on it, and they've got a horrible, crappy platform that they blast ads with constantly. No, thank you. Not interested in going live on Facebook. But YouTube, yeah, will definitely definitely be doing that. Speaking of things that we're going to be doing for definite, it is time for the new Quasi Rewind from our Quasi scientist, Mr. Dean Cooper. If you have not put a comment in the chat box out there, if you're watching live, do so now, because shout outs are coming up, and I won't know you're out there if you don't say hello. Enjoy this Quasi Rewind. And now, Quasi Theories from a Quasi Scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
I just finished watching a show covering the 2016 Consumer Electronics Show out in Vegas. I found it disconcerting, to say the least. Forget your fears of Skynet and T-1000s coming for you. Focus your paranoia on that which you will soon use every day. There are now at least 3 brands of digital sneakers, one of which can tighten or loosen its own shoelaces, 2 of which have HD displays, yes, HDTV on your shoes, and 2 of which have foot warmers, all of which Bluetooth to your phone. Your phone can Bluetooth to your computer, your new digital refrigerator can Wi-Fi to your TV, which can Wi-Fi to your phone, which can Bluetooth to your electric blanket, which can talk to your sneakers. Your Japanese digitally controlled toilet, which can spray wash your butt and genitals, will then blow dry, no pun intended, those areas, and is controlled by Bluetoothing to your phone. The heating, air conditioning, door locks, and burglar alarm in your house talk to your computer with Wi-Fi, and your computer talks to your phone about how things are going home-wise. This is a shortened list of all the potentially digitally connectable items that are available now or in a year or two. They are all talking to each other more and more. Soon, if you piss off your refrigerator, your toilet may not dry your butt. Anger your microwave, and your refrigerator will only order gluten-free vegan food from Peapod. Or maybe worst of all, annoy your phone and it will tighten the bejesus out of your shoelaces, give you a hot foot, and then program the video displays on those sneakers to show all the porn in full HD you've had Siri search for. Skynet and the T-1000 would mercifully only kill you. You may read the text of this hypothesis on my blog, My Blatherings, at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Drops the mic and walks away. That's right. All the porn you've ever searched on by Siri stream to your sneakers. That's kind of a nightmare for me. I've never had Siri search for porn. I've never really thought of it. Thanks, Dean. Maybe she could suggest something new. All right, people. It is that time of the week where we go out here to the chat room and see who's watching live, and there's a whole bunch of people out there. So let's say hi to them. Brown Dwarf, he's in the house. John Doe, he too is in the house. Starshine swinging her tool. Oreo Cream Rocks, hello there. Yikes, 721's in the house, as well as Diggs 59. Asderland Drake, how you doing? Gone trapping. Hey, that's a good idea. I like trapping. Ken, every week, all over my nose. There he is. Hey, he was here earlier for the Vinyl Power Show that you missed at 5 p.m. Pacific. There's my drunken Irish dad, Ryan McGinty. How you doing there, champ? Keith Harden, hello back to you. Just Me is also in the house. There's a John Leyland. How you doing, champ? Sam Squanch Rivera, he too showed up for Vinyl Power. There's Mr. Dean Cooper, your quasi-theorist. Mr. Jonathan Dowdy, how you doing, man? John Capriotti is in the house. All right, Natalie Smith, how you doing? I am going fine for this Fair Turkey Day. We're going to give my relatives some money at the casino tomorrow for crab on crab on crab. Jay Gert, he's in the house. There is Mary S. She used to be Mama Renee. How you doing? I'm a effing problem. Hey, don't be an effing problem. Just be a effing solution. Squatchbach, and I'm sure Christopher, he's hanging out. Hey, I hope the puppy's feeling better. It looked like you got him there in time. I very much appreciate it. Let's see here. Who else is out there? I know that there's a bunch up above. because I started at the bottom and moved forward because I'm like that sometimes. Let's see here. Let's scroll up. Make sure we didn't miss anybody at the top because I know we did. There's always people at the top who don't talk at the bottom. Collier Wilmus is out there somewhere. He's always hanging out. No, he didn't do an intro for us today because he left his microphone at Grandma's house. Timothy McCune, I knew that there would be people up here that I didn't mention yet. So glad you're there. Jeremy Harrison, if I hadn't said your name yet, I surely just did. Hot diggity dog. So glad you are there. You can always send me an email at sloungepodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear about your personal Bigfoot encounter. Got a couple of them in my email, but they didn't say to share it, so I can't share them with you yet, but I'm working on it. One feller saw one down by the creek and didn't know what to do. I said, put a trail cam down there by the creek. That would be what I did. Let's see here. Who else is Danny from Texas. How you doing there, Danny? Glad you were there. Absolutely. Send me that email. I would love to hear your story. Tell me I can share it on the air if you're going to send me one of them stories or not, because I would love to share it with everybody. That's right. Who else is floating around out there? You're Hobo Man 5. How you doing there, champ? So glad you are there. Forest Crab. That's right. People call me Forest Crab. So glad you're out there, pal. Got a bunch of forests hang out around here. Lance Windsor, I'm sure he is out there. He's always out there. Let's see here. I think Cat Yarborough. See, I didn't want to miss you. Getting down there. Rod Dupree. That man is always in the place to be. Keith Harden. If I didn't say your name, I certainly did. I know I said just me. And now I know we're getting to the bottom. So if you haven't heard your name, I didn't read it in the chat box, and I'm really sorry. Oh, there's a what was that? Finally showed up in the house. There's the Lance Windsor. Of course, I knew you were out there, bud. All right, so let's see what is going on out here as well. There's a HNN Rules. I don't know what that means, but HNN Rules says hello as well. So there we go. I think we have covered everybody now. Let's get on with it. With New Jersey? Really? You said that there's Sam Squanch in New Jersey? Well, yeah, actually there is. There is Bigfoot in New Jersey, and somehow that got closed, but that's okay because I have it right here, and it ain't no biggie. Yeah, it's right near the Delaware Water Gap, and you will see when we kick it over to the satellite just what makes it so interesting of a place. As you can see, the map is slowly pulling up here because Google soaks up the resources. But there's the Delaware the Delaware Water Gap area, and it literally runs nearly the entire length of the border of this particular county. And on the other side of it, you got the Wabayanda State Park. I am a cunning linguist. So yeah, we'll cut over to the satellite once all that loads up here. But let's get some story time in here and see exactly what they came from. Now, I've actually split this into early experience, in the early sightings and late sightings, so that we can revisit this county come season 2 of. So let's start out here in the year 1976. Teens have a scary encounter in an abandoned creamery near Sussex. It was near the old milk company off the side of the road across the street from a very old graveyard and an overgrown field of weeds next to some old barn. Back east, when I was about 14 in 1976, a buddy of mine and myself went out shooting our BB guns. And we came across this old board up Carnation Creamery. We being kids, we broke into the place, and it was at least 150 years old. So we started to look in this old milk wagon and the old horse and buggy kind. After some time, we came across this ladder that went to an attic. My friend, being smaller than myself, gave me his gun and said, "I want to take a look up there." Well, as I watched him climb up the ladder and look inside, he yells down to me, "Dude, something up here. Smells really bad." Well, as I watched him turning around on the ladder, I see him stop turning and he jumps from the top step. He comes right down next to me. I said, "What the heck did you do that for?" He says he can see things, hairy legs behind a box. And then something big runs across the attic floor and breaks down this wall to the other side of the garage and runs across the roof and out into the cornfield. I remember looking across the room out the window and seeing its reflection on the window next door to the place we were in. And it was big. It ran the distance of the building in 5 or 6 hops and then through the wall. Funny thing about this break in, flew open, and this little whirlwind comes in and stays right there in the path of the cornfield, and we can see his path. Sometimes people report them in abandoned buildings, and in a lot of times in barns, you'll hear of them, being spooked out of a barn. Don't really know if maybe they're nesting there. Who knows what it could be? But an abandoned 150-year-old milk dairy, yeah, I can see something, posted up inside there, maybe making its life there. The summertime, July 1978. 2 witnesses catch a daylight. The closest main road is Camp Trail. Let's see here. And the nearest town is Hopatcong. Yeah, I doubt that was right. Well, my friend and I were 11 years old, and we have some old Playboy books, and we were sitting on a big rock in the woods looking at them when we heard a small dead tree fall over. We looked up and saw what we believed to be a Bigfoot, 8 or 9 feet tall and walking horizontal to us. It was walking from right to left, and as it was walking, it was moving towards a small stream. It didn't seem to care about us, but we didn't stick around to find out. We ran out of the woods very quickly with us that ran towards the creature, but later came back home with no problems. We got home and got our BB guns and tape recorder and went back up there to where we had the sighting. I guess we thought we were going to be famous. We found no evidence. The next day, the paper, there was a front page article about footprints being found. Crazy. I'm going to get my BB gun and go shoot me at Sam Square. I'm going to kill me some redcoats. I bet you could. So movie buffs will get that one. All right. Man recalls hearing strange howls while camping in High Point State Park in the year 1990. Summertime, June. See here. The High Point State Park, New Jersey, camping with my much younger siblings. They are younger than I, 8 and 9. Camping area was around a small lake. A few folks were camping right near the turnoff. And we went all the way down to the lake on the far side, away from everyone. It was about 20 yards from the access road to the lake. We put up the tents close to the lake, so about 20 yards from the vehicle. We made a fire about dusk. From directly across the lake from where we were camped on the hillside, we heard a long, loud howl. After that, it got dark, and we were roasting marshmallows. We heard the same sound, now closer to us to the left. My siblings asked the same question. What the heck is that? I gave them the same answer. I have no idea. Well, it started to drizzle, so we went to the tent to sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, after we were all asleep, we were awoken by the same howl, except much closer and much louder than before. So loud that if we had to yell at my brother and sister, I'm not sure they could have made out what I was saying. Same answer. On the way out of the campground the next day, I asked the ranger on duty if he heard the howling last night. He sort of laughed and said no. Like an idiot, I thought he stayed there overnight. but he could have lived an hour away for all I know. It wasn't until I saw a show about strange creatures on late night that I actually had heard the same kind of suspicious howl that I had heard that evening. And that then became the explanation to my younger siblings when they asked, "What do you think that was?" I now tell them it was a Bigfoot. I like those ones where they don't really know what it is. It's something they can't identify. It scares the living crap out of them. I've seen and heard fox that scared the absolute crap out of me. A mountain lion in heat will absolutely terrify you. There's a lot of weird, screamy things in the woods, and a lot of them have to do with hormones. How do you make a hormone? Don't pair. All right, 1991, Saturday, summertime. Montauk, New Jersey is the closest town. I and about 7 other campers heard a very loud growl that quickly changed into a long-lasting howl. To be safe, we all retreated to our cars for a while because we had no idea what could be making that sound that we had heard. I'm reporting this some 20 years after the fact because I just wrote it off as a wild animal to repair. But again, after seeing a TV show about Bigfoot for the first time, and I heard what they cut back was, I know now what it was I heard back then. 7 people in our group and an unknown number of campers nearby heard those screams until 10 p.m. It was clear, it was warm, and it was dark. A campfire was our only light. Howls in the night. People don't know what they are. They don't know what to make of it. 20 years later, they watch Finding Bigfoot and hear what they claim to be Bigfoot calls, and all of a sudden, these memories come flooding back to them. I heard that once. It scared the crap out of me. Absolutely, it does. All right, let's get down and dirty with it here for the night. The year was 1997. Encountered a garbage dump in Hamburg near the Delaware Water Gap. That's right. The nearest road was Route 94. All of 1997, I was coming out of my apartment's laundry facility, which is a separate building not connected to the actual apartment buildings. I must have heard something because I looked to my right, and there it was about 20 feet away. The creature was about 5.5 to 6 feet tall. I guess it was around 200 pounds. There was no odor and it made no sound. I was rooting through a garbage dumpster. In a matter of seconds, my brain went through all kinds of checklists to try and rationalize what I was seeing, but it was too slim in relation to its height. It also moved in a way that was very human. It was a nighttime, but there was a parking light on overhead. I could see hair that was brown that was about 4 to 7 inches in length. Unfortunately, primitive survival instinct and adrenaline took over. I bolted towards my apartment, running so fast that I lost my footing as I was going through a dip in the terrain. I landed arms first and slid across the gravel-covered road. I looked over my shoulder to see that it too had run and was about 200 feet from where we had met. I'm certain it was not an animal that is commonly known to people. It was a humanoid in appearance and movement. The way it stopped what it was doing, turned its head and looked at me was freaky. Because of shadows, I couldn't get a look at its face. The incident didn't change my life or anything. I hardly ever think about it unless I look at my elbow. I scraped it literally so bad when running that I have a scar to this day. When I first told this story to my wife, she was very taken aback because she knows that I am a very rational and analytic person. And that's really what it comes down to is, somebody, when people don't know exactly what it is that they saw in the, that's when you have to ask them. Well, you have to sit down and make a rational list of the things that you didn't see. And then you have to see what's left over from that. Once you see what's left over from that, well, then you kind of have an idea. Did see. Trying to get this to kick over to the satellite so that we can take kind of a good look at what we're looking at here. And that helps out just a little bit there. And you can see the Delaware Water Gap is literally just this giant running trench across the terrain here. This is the area that we're really talking about mostly. And again, these animals were probably here for thousands, maybe even as much as 10,000 years before human civilization got here and took over the United States. I mean, yeah, there's lots and lots of stories of the hairy tribes that come from the Native Americans, but they were probably here long before them as well. We don't really know when they got here, but the fact of the matter is they're here and they didn't come here after us. So chances are, like everything else, we're kind of pushing them out into the extreme areas that we now have to go out into to find them in most. And take a look there. There's the state park that we were talking about earlier. There's the High Point State Park over yonder. Runs right through the Delaware Water Gap, which would make sense that animals would migrate, live, congregate, and have straight up resident populations that run all through those areas. Now, this isn't our usual looking ridge line, shadow line, water line, and gap line, but as you can see, there's water every few miles in this type of a case. So it definitely leads to the ability that these animals would be able to exist in places like this and still be able to move from location to location with as heavily forested as it actually still is. So with that, that'll take and wrap up our discussion of the Sussex, New Jersey. Yeah, Jersey. Who thought there's Bigfoot in Jersey? And it's not the Jersey Devil, and it's not the Pine Barrens. Imagine that. It's one of those instances that just kind of makes sense. I do have a Bigfoot campfire story here for you for the end of the show. As usual, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to you people out there. And may everything be the way it's supposed to be till next week. Sure. That's kind of the way it goes. You're here. I'm there. I'm here. You're there. That's what makes it all awesome. And I want to say thank you, each and everyone, for being here all year long, especially you guys that watch live. It is very heartwarming that after 5 years, you guys are still hanging out and you are still so supportive in what I do. I do it for you guys. I certainly don't do it for me. So let's hope that our Superfan shows are fantastic for the end of the year. And if you want to be part of those Superfan shows, if you'd like to come on and just talk about Bigfoot or just talk about your experiences with Bigfoot, then give me an email at sloungepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at sloungepodcast. And we will set you up. I still got a few shows open. And with that, thanks everybody for being here. We're going to finish it out with a Bigfoot campfire story for the weekend, and it is the first of the Fox saga. So I really hope you guys enjoy this one. I haven't even finished the saga yet, but I promise I will do so before the end of the year. We will have all 10 episodes of Bigfoot campfire stories before the end of the year. I promise. And with that, enjoy it. We'll see you next week, and may the Squatch be with you. You guys hear that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that's a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Well, Dave Carter and his family had lived on his family's property for as long as they had been married. The land had been his father's and his father's father before him, as far back as anyone around town had remembered. It had been some of the highest ridges in the hollow and some of the prime growing lots on nearly all sides of the line. Dave lived there for many years with his wife Sue and young daughter Jenny. The house was a plain single-level dwelling built sometime after the Great War, faded white paint chipping off everywhere and new shingles laid over the old to keep the wind and the rain out, and a wraparound porch with a screened-in back for muggy summer nights. Nearly everything Dave owned was either secondhand or something his father had left behind, but it all worked in its own weird way. And the family existed this way, day in and day out. The area was full of wildlife, from the smallest wood rats to the biggest black bears and everything in between. On the west side of the property, there was a livestock pond and a barn and a garage up front for the equipment. The fall had set in early this year, and the days grew more windy and cold as the sun set in. It was a Tuesday evening when Dave had been returning to town when his life became a bit more interesting. Well, Sue had sent me into town to pick up some groceries for a late supper. She hadn't realized the corn had gone bad and wanted a few other things along with it. I had passed my friend Eric Swanson on the way into town, and he was heading out. We waved at each other as we passed. Well, upon my return from town, to my surprise, just 100 yards down from my driveway was Eric's car, all smashed in the front and leaking fluids. I drove up the road a bit to try and find him, and I hadn't had any luck, so I turned up my driveway to the house, and I was surprised to find him in my kitchen with my wife, a bit shaken, having some coffee. It happened to the car, and all he would say was some sort of animal. He wasn't quite sure. It was just that it ran out in front of the car, took the hit, and then ran back into the woods, screaming in pain as it ran away. Ran away, I asked. Yes, he said, take it for what you want, but it looked like a little hairy person, all covered in gray-brown hair, and that was all he could express in detail, other than sitting there sipping the coffee, mumbling. It was a little hairy person, sure of it, but not a person. It was an animal, as if trying to work out what had happened in his own head. We phoned a tow truck and to come and collect his car, as there was no way it was drivable with the fender crushed in as it was. I let Eric finish 2 more cups of coffee and tried once again to get the story, but he just said the same thing. It looked like a hair-covered person, but it was an animal. And just then, Eric's wife pulled up into the drive. Eric, looking a bit panicked, begged that we just tell her it was a deer and leave it at that. He didn't want to sound crazy to his wife, to which we agreed, and after a cup of coffee with Eric and his wife, they left without any further talk of the accident. Once Eric had left, Sue turned to me and asked, just what do you think he meant? It was a little hairy man, but it wasn't. Well, of course, I had no idea, but I was going to go find out. So I grabbed my shotgun, and I set outside for a walk about the property. I walked down the driveway back out to the road, then turned left to get back to where Eric had left his car. As I turned the corner, I noticed that the tow truck was there and had just backed up to hook it up. As I approached the car, I began to notice a foul animal smell. It was like wet dog, only worse. And then I could see the blood. Pete, the tow truck driver, commented on the damage. He said, boy, that must have been some big dog. It's bent clear up in the hood. Look at that hair. That's dog hair, isn't it? Well, I reached up into the jagged, wrinkled car fender and hood and pulled a tuft of hair from it. It was the strangest hair I had ever laid eyes on. Longer than a dog's, yet shorter than a horse's mane. There was a very strange coarseness to it. But when I smelled it, that was when I learned where the smell had actually come from. I looked all down the side of the car, and there were drips of blood and feces where the animal had bounced off the fender. Well, I trucked the blood back to the grass and noticed a trail of it heading back off into the woods. So I began to follow the trail. After all, if there was a wounded animal out there, it shouldn't be left to suffer. The trail was really easy to follow at first, as the blood was pretty wet nearly every few feet. But then it began to get thinner and less often, until I lost the trail completely. Did the animal bleed out? Well, if it did, it should be laying around here somewhere. So I began to walk in spirals looking for a body. I searched and searched for quite some time until the sun was nearly gone from the horizon, and it was just too late to look further. I would have to come back in the morning with some help, so I headed back to the house for some dinner and to update the wife. As I got near the house, Jenny, our daughter, was being fussy, and it was all I could do not to laugh. I opened the front door, and Sue exclaimed out, "Where have you been? We've been surrounded by something yelling from the woods." Well, I hadn't heard anything on my walk up from the front acreage, but sure enough, just then, what sounded like a wailing cry came from behind the house. With this being the high hills of Tennessee, there are bobcat and cougar, as well as bear and a dozen other things lurking in the darkness, so running off into the night was not something I wanted to do. Instead, I picked up the shotgun again and made my way out into the yard and waited for the next yell to start. And as it did, I let loose a thunderous boom from the 12-gauge, and the wail stopped. That was the last we had heard of it for the night. The next morning, I was surprised to be awakened at nearly sunup by none other than Eric himself. We sat on the front porch and drank coffee while we talked. I told him what had happened so far, and he was a bit weirded out that there was something in the woods, most likely wounded and hurting, and insisted that he help me search, at least once more. We both grabbed a shotgun and headed out the back door towards the last place we had heard the poor creature the night before. Eric and I slowly made our way back into the tree line until we came upon a game trail that appeared to view the house. We walked along the path only to find where something had been standing with old blood dripping into a pool where they had leaned next to a tree. I knew this game trail and also knew that it ran directly behind the old sheep barn on the back acres. So we headed up that way following the old blood until once again, it just stopped. We searched the ground again all around and nothing was just gone. We moved along with some haste after not finding a body, and as we approached the old barn, we could hear something was inside of it. Whatever it was, wasn't in very good shape, as you could hear labored breathing and grunting and wincing in pain. I kicked open the barn door and turned to see the strangest creature I had ever laid eyes on. Eric screamed out in weirdness and proclaimed it to be, "That's the hairy little man I hit with my car. What the hell, man?" Sure enough, it looked like a hairy little man, some 5 foot tall, 2 arms, 2 legs, but a strange monkey head, encumbered from head to toe in grayish brown hair, all but the face, hands, and bottom of the feet. We both stood there just staring at it. It was plainly in fear of us, but the tore open wound in its leg from the accident was going to be an issue. It attempted to get up and flee from us, but it could no longer put any weight on its leg and was now either going to perish or live based on what we did next. We talked about putting it out of its misery, but it looked at us with such sadness in its eyes that any thought of that just went away. I sent Eric back to the house to gather up Sue and bring the medicine kit from the storm cellar, while I stayed with it and tried to figure out how to contain it. Eric dropped his gun and quickly fled to the house with haste. I had barely enough time to fix the poles in the stall before I heard the old pickup truck and both doors close. Now Sue would see this creature too. Eric and Sue appeared in the doorway with Jenny in Eric's arms. Sue had lost her breath for a moment or two upon seeing the creature and mentioned to the effect, "Well, I never believed my daddy about these things. He warned us to be careful when I was young. Sure enough, here one is." It wasn't all that shaken past that moment. The poor creature had a nasty open wound on its right leg, and it had to have been sewn shut if it was going to survive at all. Well, Sue approached it softly and quietly and tried to gain its trust, but it lashed out at her and pushed her back to the ground, to which I almost unloaded my shotgun into it at that moment. But she exclaimed that she was all right and not to shoot. Finally, Eric and I approached it and grasped it by both arms. They were very muscular and strong to the point that even grown men had a difficult time in holding it down. But the poor creature just had no strength left, and it passed out from the trauma. Eric and I tied the creature tight and let Sue sew its wounds, scrubbing the bad tissue out as she closed it. Now it would just be a matter of time to see whether it lived or not, and for that, we could only wait. We untied the animal, decided it needed a name if we were going to help it any further. Sue looked at it and said it had the coloring of a gray fox, so Fox the Bigfoot it should be. I sent Eric, the wife, and baby back to the house as I wanted to stay at the barn to see if Fox awoke. It took a full day and another night until he finally regained consciousness and began to look around. He began to look about until he spotted me in the corner just watching him. I'd set up a water barrel and a food station with fresh vegetables and some raw meats for him to eat at, and it didn't take long for him to begin to devour it. Fox stayed in the barn for another solid week as he gained more strength each day. Eric had not been back to see Fox, but he had called Sue each evening to check on his progress. During that time, we even let Fox interact with Jenny just a bit, as he seemed to be as gentle as a parent would be with her. He loved to sniff in her hair deep into his nose, then exhale and sigh. Finally, one morning, I came back to the barn. Fox was gone, his food untouched, and no sign of fresh tracks anywhere to be found. I returned each day for another solid week, yet still no sign of Fox the Bigfoot remained. I guess he was finally healed enough to get back to where he belonged. All I could do would be to be thankful for the time that we got to spend with him in the first place, something nearly no one else on the planet has done. For years after Fox the Bigfoot was spotted in and around the Carter Ranch, from time to time there were many interactions over the years, but those are stories best left to another time. And such is the tale of Tennessee man saves Fox the Bigfoot after being hit by a car. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you. And with that, let's give a happy Thanksgiving out to Raymond Lopez and Michael Burt. I see you guys showed up a little late to the party, but so glad you finally arrived. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, and may the Squatch be with you. We'll see you next week, guys.